This man, Zed, one day meets his old friend who is known as Don now because he is so wealthy and invites him to the party at his house, but at home, his wife gets a bad feeling about it and she tries to stop her, but then Zed persuades her and she accepts him to go. When he reached at the party, he admired the life his friend had and he asked him how he made it, and Don took him outside and told him that tomorrow he is taking him to the source of his wealth. The next day he took him to the house of his colleague who is known as Billion, their head in the group, who told him to sacrifice his baby, but he tried to resist, but Billion told him that the baby is sick and about to die, so he should use the opportunity. This man Zed convinces his wife and to bring their baby to his friend's house, and he agreed to that, but the baby was taken to a certain room upstairs where a group of men gathered around an elderly woman who asked for the baby. She put the baby in the mortar and she used the pestle to crush the baby, and the father was welcomed by his colleagues into the evil society, and when he went down to his wife who asked for the baby, they grabbed her and took her in another room where they stabbed her in the neck and died too. One day her mother was sleeping but got a dream when she was from the garden, and she saw the spirit of her daughter crying and its clothes stained with blood while she carries a baby, but when the mother tried to approach her she disappeared and the mother woke up so scared. The next day we see a traditional wedding of Zed marrying another woman where his colleagues arrive and splash money and people started to pick it up, but also Billion dressed him a scarf of brotherhood and also they splashed money on him and the wife. As they were enjoying the wedding, Billion sensed something strange, but it was the spirit of Zed's late wife, and he went into the spiritual world to stop her, but her spirit told him move out of her way and tried to capture it, but it ran away. Then he came behind it and used his powers and captured it and put her in the bottle. He closed the bottle and made sure it's steady, then put the bottle in his bottle and came back to the wedding, but immediately called out his friends to leave. They followed him up and entered their cars and drove away. When he reached home, he tried to hold the bottle, but the spirit of the lady was stronger and escaped out, and she told him to leave this battle or she will kill him, and she disappeared. The new wedded couple entered their house and love was at the top, then they moved to their bedroom to make each other happy. In the village we see the mother of Zed's late wife crying, lamenting and cursing the person who killed her daughter. The next day, Zed's sister-in-law saw a convoy of certain men who came and were stopped by the gatekeeper, but they asked for Zed, but the gatekeeper replied he is absent, and they asked him to inform Zed that his colleagues need him, and they left. In the evening, when Zed's wife and her sister were in the kitchen, she explained to her the scenario that took place at noon about Zed's friend, and she told her that she has a bad feeling about his friends, but the wife angrily replied to her to shut up, and she grabbed the tray from her and continued to prepare the rice. That same night in the mid-morning, as Zed's sister-in-law was sleeping in her room, the spirit of his late wife appeared to her as sounds of a crying baby were so loud which awoke her, and when she opened up her eyes and beheld the spirit, she made a loud alert while calling her sister, who swiftly in came and asked her about the matter. She told her what she was seeing and pointed there, but her sister saw nothing and told her to be strong about nightmares, and she left her so scared. That same spirit of Zed's late wife and her baby were crying and sitting outside on the floors of the house, but also the same voices woke up Zed, who was sleeping in his bed. He got up so scared and he tried to check through the window, but his wife found him and she told him it was the radio, but when he tried to switch off the radio, but the sounds couldn't stop, and this caused him so terrified that night. In the morning, as Zed's sister-in-law was putting on makeup on her face, the spirit appeared to her and she screamed, but she told her that the house they are living in and all the luxury are all from her and the baby's blood, and they disappeared. The girl sat down, started crying, and when her big sister found her, she asked her what the problem was, and she explained that she saw a ghost, but she slapped her and told her to leave and go back to the village cause she will spoil her marriage. When the girl got back in the village, she narrates everything to the parents, but the father couldn't believe her, only to tell her that she wants to destroy her sister's marriage, which pissed off her mum and left the sitting room, and the father switched on his TV to watch his daughter's wedding. In the night, as Zed and his wife were in bed sleeping, he was awoke by the cries of the baby, and he decided to go outside the house, and he found the spirit of his late wife and the baby crying, and he told them to leave him and his family alone, but his wife had woke up and followed her up. She asked him why he is talking to himself alone, but Zed moved inside and told her to stop disrespecting her, but this left the wife perplexed and worried. Zed's mother-in-law visited in the morning, and this gave the wife a chance to tell her everything, but Zed was hearing their conversation and interrupted them by telling his wife that if he is to flip his mouth concerning everything happening in the house, her mother won't sleep at home that night, and he left. But the mother told her daughter to endure and tell God everything for help cause the father had refused her to go back and leave her marriage. The The next day, Zed decides to visit his colleagues in their quarters where they were enjoying drinks, and they welcomed him. When Zed sat down, he told them about how his house is haunted by the spirit of his late wife and child, crying tremendously to the point that he can't sleep, but they only laughed out loud. But after Billion told him there is a ritual he had to do just because they saw his heart weak, they couldn't just tell him. The ritual was to sacrifice a part on his body to terribly rot with maggots, and Billion showed his head, which looked disgusting, and another one opened his leg too. He was so terrified and they laughed at him, but Billion told him it's the only way he could be free. But finally he decided to give in his hand for sacrifice, and then he sipped some whiskey. In the night when Zed woke up, he saw his hand infected and started to rot and got worried, but as he turned to sleep he saw the image of his late wife in bed and screamed, but immediately started to strangle his wife's neck, but the wife only cried and Zed apologized that it was a nightmare. Zed was taken to the hospital and the doctor took a blood sample for more test, and he asked them for him to stay in the hospital for further checkups. When Zed lied on the bed in the hospital, he remembered what his late wife said to him about his colleagues, but he couldn't listen and tears fell from his eyes. While he was in regret, his wife came in with lunch and encouraged him that he will be fine, and also the doctor joined and gave him his dosage, and then asked the wife to call upon Zed's parents to come because he wanted to tell them something urgent. The wife promised Zed to come back early and left. His friend Don also came to meet him, but the odor of the room was disgusting, and he asked the doctor how Zed was, but the doctor told him he will be fine, and he left. Don goes to meet Billion to find a way to help Zed, but after they tossed a drink, Billion told him that it's too late for him because he was told everything, but he couldn't listen, and Don sadly kept quiet. The next day Zed's wife was in deep sorrow when she saw the situation of her husband as the doctor was checking his hand. His parents came in and saw the doctor cleaning pus from his skin, but the mother immediately fainted and he was helped and put on a chair to rest. But the doctor called upon his father in his office and told him that they have tried every possible way for Zed to be well, but it turns out not responding, and he told him that they should take him home and only wait for his death. The father sadly thanked the doctor for all he did, then they shaked hands and he left the office. When they came back from the meeting in the office, the doctor disconnected the blood transfusion and made sure that Zed is free, and he told them that he should be taken home to rest. Zed told his parents to take. When the wife heard that, she told them that she was really tired of this kind of marriage and left them, and all the parents were amazed, but there was nothing to do. Zed asked his parents to help him get up so that they move out of the hospital, and as they tried he was in deep pain. When his wife went to the village and explained all that had happened to her parents, her mother begged his father to allow her to stay, but the father refused and entered the house, leaving her daughter in tears. Zed was brought to their village, as pity was on the faces of his parents and relatives, but suddenly a convoy of his friends came, and when they got out of their cars to meet him, Zed pointed at them and told his parents not to allow them to reach him, and his relative walked towards them and asked them what they wanted, but replied to see Zed, but he told them he doesn't want to see you, and Don told colleagues to leave, and they entered their cars and left. Later in the spirit world, we see his late wife telling God to have mercy on him that he may die in peace, but God accepted her request and told her to go and free him. And that night as Zed was sleeping, as his parents were sitting next to him with sad faces, but the spirit of his late wife appeared to him and he asked for forgiveness, that all he wanted was them to be well after getting rich, ignorant of the outcomes of her death. But as he was saying all that, his parents were listening. The parents were so astonished by his words, and his late wife forgave him and disappeared. Zed's parents watched him die, and the mother, filled with sorrow, sat down weeping. Moral of the story: be so grateful to God for all he is giving you. He knows what you want, and his blessing makes rich and adds no sorrow to it. Subscribe for more.